Imagine if tomorrow an unknown army destroyed the United States, China, and Europe in just 50 years, then completely vanished. That's exactly what happened to the greatest empires of the ancient world 3,000 years ago. The 14th and 13th centuries BC witnessed the Mediterranean world at its Bronze Age apex. Interconnected civilizations reached unprecedented levels of sophistication, wealth, and territorial control. This period, spanning from 1400 to 1200 BC, represented the culmination of nearly a millennium of gradual development in metallurgy, warfare, administration, and maritime technology. Three great powers dominated this landscape: the Hittite Empire controlling most of Anatolia and northern Syria, Mycenaean Greece commanding the Aegean and its trade routes, and New Kingdom Egypt extending its influence from Nubia to the Euphrates. Under kings like Suppiluliuma of It and Muwatalli II, the Hittite Empire had transformed from a regional Anatolian kingdom into a superpower capable of challenging Egyptian hegemony in the Levant. From their capital at Hattusa, the Hittites administered a complex feudal system incorporating numerous vassal states, while maintaining direct control over strategic territories. The city itself sprawled across 180 hectares. It was protected by massive stone walls reinforced with towers, featuring elaborate gate structures decorated with carved lions and warriors. Archaeological excavations have revealed a sophisticated urban center with separate districts for the royal citadel, temples, and administrative buildings, all connected by paved streets and supplied by an advanced water management system, including underground channels and reservoirs. Hittite military organization reflected their imperial ambitions and territorial extent. The core of their army consisted of professional warriors equipped with bronze weapons, supported by contingents from vassal states and allied territories. Hittite chariot forces represented the pinnacle of Bronze Age mobile warfare, with vehicles constructed using advanced techniques that balance speed, durability, and combat effectiveness. These chariots featured lightweight wooden frames reinforced with bronze fittings, spoked wheels designed for maneuverability, and were typically crewed by two warriors, a driver and either an archer or spearman. Infantry formations included both heavy and light troops. Heavy infantry carried bronze-tipped spears and rectangular shields while wearing bronze-scale armor. Light troops served as skirmishers and archers. The Hittite legal and administrative system, preserved in thousands of cuneiform tablets from Hattusa, reveals a highly organized state apparatus. The king served as both supreme military commander and high priest, supported by a hierarchy of nobles, provincial governors, and local administrators. Treaties with vassal states followed standardized formats outlining mutual obligations, tribute requirements, and military assistance clauses. The Hittites maintained diplomatic correspondence with other major powers including Egypt, Assyria, and Babylon, using Akkadian as the lingua franca of international relations. Mycenaean Greece during this period encompassed not only the Greek mainland but also extended its influence across the Aegean islands, coastal Anatolia, and parts of the eastern Mediterranean. The Mycenaean political system centered on fortified palace complexes that served as administrative, religious, and economic centers for surrounding territories. Pylos under the Wanax Nestor controlled the southwestern Peloponnese from a palace complex that housed extensive archives written in Linear B script. These administrative records detail a sophisticated bureaucracy that managed land tenure, taxation, religious offerings, and craft production with remarkable precision. The palace at Pylos covered approximately 2 hectares and featured a distinctive megaron hall with a central hearth surrounded by 4 columns supporting a clerestory roof. Walls were decorated with frescoes depicting processions, hunting scenes, and mythological subjects, while floors were covered with painted plaster in geometric and naturalistic patterns. Storage areas contained hundreds of stirrup jars for oil and wine, bronze vessels, ivory objects, and weapons, indicating both local production and extensive trade connections. The palace's administrative wing housed archives containing over 1,000 Linear B tablets that recorded everything from livestock inventories to religious festival preparations. These tablets show us the incredibly complex organization of Bronze Age society. For instance, one tablet details all bronze production in the Pylos region, which workshop received how much raw material, how many weapons were produced, where they were sent. Another group of tablets describes preparations for an upcoming religious festival, sacrifices to be offered to the gods, priests who would participate in the ceremony, sacred vessels to be used, even the number of musicians who would attend the festival. One of the most interesting aspects of the Linear B tablets is how clearly they reveal social hierarchy. At the top is the Wanax, king, below him the Lorwagatas, military commander. Then come the Telestai, land-owning nobles. Further down are the Hikketai, the king's followers or companions. At the bottom are the douaroi, the slaves. But interestingly, even these slaves had different categories: slaves of the gods, slaves of the king, slaves of private individuals. The center at Tyrans demonstrated the military engineering capabilities of late Bronze Age Greece. The Cyclopean walls, constructed from massive limestone blocks weighing several tons each, reached heights of up to 8 meters and enclosed an area of approximately 20,000 square meters. These fortifications incorporated sophisticated defensive features including corbelled galleries, sally ports, and a complex entrance system designed to channel attackers through multiple choke points. The palace within featured similar architectural elements to Pylos but on a grander scale, with a megaron measuring 11.8 by 9.9 meters, and elaborate bathroom facilities including a terracotta bathtub. Mycenaean military organization combined elements borrowed from Minoan civilization with innovations adapted to mainland Greek conditions. The chariots that formed the backbone of the Mycenaean army represented the most advanced technology of the period. Each chariot consisted of approximately 400 parts, and their assembly required expert craftsmen. Wheels were made from wood that had been heated and bent to provide flexibility. The axle was produced from specially selected hardwood for both durability and lightness. Metal fittings and accessories were cast in bronze and precisely worked. Linear B tablets show that chariot production was under state control. A tablet from Knossos gives an inventory of 246 chariots. Another tablet records the amount of bronze allocated for chariot repair. The Pylos tablets show that chariot drivers had special status. They had land allocated to them and tax exemptions. New Kingdom Egypt was at the height of its power in the 14th century BC. During the reigns of Amenhotep III and his son Amenhotep IV Akhenaten, the Egyptian empire stretched from Nubia to Syria. The temple complexes of Karnak and Luxor at Thebes were symbols of the empire's wealth and power. The Egyptian army was the most disciplined and well-equipped force of its time. Standing units of professional soldiers were supplemented during wartime by conscripts and mercenaries. Egyptian chariot units dominated the plains of Syria and Palestine. Each chariot carried 2 men, a driver and an archer. Egyptian archers with their composite bows had an effective range of up to 400 meters. Egypt's administrative system was highly developed to manage the empire's vast territories. The pharaoh as god-king held absolute authority. Below him were the vizier, provincial governors, city administrators, and village headmen. The tax system was adjusted according to the annual Nile floods. In a good flood year, taxes increased. In a bad year, they were reduced. The Amarna Letters Archive provides an extraordinary record of 14th century BC international relations. These cuneiform tablets contain diplomatic correspondence between Egypt and other great powers of the period. The Babylonian king Burnaburiash asks Pharaoh Akhenaten to send gold. "Gold is like dust in your country," he says. The Mitanni king Tushratta sends his daughter as a bride to Egypt and requests a military alliance in return. These letters also reveal the power balances of the period. Kings of small Canaanite city-states declare their loyalty to Egypt and request help against their neighbors. King Ribhadda of Byblus sends more than 60 letters constantly complaining about King Abdi-Ashurta of Amurru. King Abdi-Heba of Jerusalem complains about attacks by nomadic groups called the Habiru. Diplomatic gift exchange was an important part of international relations. Egypt sent gold, ivory, and exotic animals to its allies. In return, it received horses, chariots, precious stones, and princesses. In one letter, the Babylonian king complains about the inadequacy of gifts from Egypt. Such stingy gifts are not fitting between great kings. In the 14th and 13th centuries BC, a complex trade network had developed in the eastern Mediterranean. The center of this network has been revealed in incredible detail, thanks to the Uluburun shipwreck found off the southern coast of modern Turkey. This ship, dating to around 1300 BC, was carrying 10 tons of copper ingots, 1 ton of tin, gold and silver jewelry, ivory, ebony wood, terebinth resin, saffron, and valuable glass ingots. The cargo on the ship shows just how international trade of the period was. The copper came from Cyprus. In fact, the ancient name of Cyprus, Al-Ashir, was so identified with copper that one of the words used for copper in Akkadian was Al-Ashir metal. The tin probably came from Afghanistan, a journey of more than 3,000 kilometers, ivory from Africa, amber from the Baltic, lapis lazuli again from Afghanistan. Trade wasn't limited to luxury goods. Basic foodstuffs like grain, olive oil and wine were also traded. Egypt exported grain to the Levant, receiving timber and olive oil in return. Mycenaean Greece exported perfumed oils and painted ceramics. Cyprus, with the wealth from its copper exports, had become the trade center of the eastern Mediterranean, Ugarit on the Syrian coast was a perfect example of this trade network. The city served as a bridge between east and west. Tablets written in 8 different languages were found in Ugarit's archives: Ugaritic, Akkadian, Hittite, Hurrian, Egyptian, Minoan, Cypriot and Luwian. This is proof of how cosmopolitan the city was. Ugarit's wealth came from its location and commercial skill. The city exported its own products, especially the famous purple dye. Purple dye was so valuable, it was traded for its weight in gold. More than 10,000 sea snails were needed to produce 1 gram of purple dye. Ugarit was also a center of metallurgy. Workshops in the city processed raw copper and produced bronze tools, weapons and art objects. Ugarit's diplomatic importance was also great. The city was nominally a vassal of the Hittite Empire, but it also maintained commercial relations with Egypt and Assyria. This balance policy allowed Ugarit to prosper until the Sea Peoples came. In the 1250s BC, the first cracks began to appear in this seemingly perfect system. Climate change, drought, internal unrest, succession disputes had begun in the Hittite Empire. During the reign of Tudhaliya IV, the capital Hattusa was temporarily burned and abandoned. The empire recovered but never reached its former power. In Egypt, the long reign of Ramesses II (1279 to 1213 BC) had ended. His son Merneptah was an old and sick man. On the empire's western border, the Libyans posed a threat, while in the east, mysterious sea peoples were threatening. The Merneptah stela mentions these sea peoples for the first time. The foreign countries made a conspiracy in their islands. All at once the lands were removed and scattered in the fray. There were problems in Mycenaean Greece too. Linear B tablets reveal economic difficulties. The Pylos tablets record problems like inability to collect taxes, labor shortages, and lack of raw materials. One tablet orders bronze temple doors to be removed for weapon making, an indication of how desperate the situation was. Research by paleoclimatologists shows that around 1200 BC, the eastern Mediterranean experienced a severe drought. Sediment samples from the Dead Sea reveal that water levels dropped dramatically during this period. Ice cores from Greenland indicate a period of global cooling. Tree rings show slowed annual growth. This climate crisis deeply affected Bronze Age economies based on agriculture. The Nile floods became irregular. Grain production fell in Anatolia. Famine began in Syria and Palestine. Suppiluliuma II, son of Hittite king Tudhaliya IV, requests urgent grain aid from Egypt. King Amurapi of Ugarit reports using all his ships to transport grain. The drought didn't just affect food production. Decreasing water sources made it difficult to supply cities with water. Water points along trade routes dried up. Nomadic groups, searching for water and pasture, began to pressure settled regions. The economic crisis also shook the social structure. The gap between the elite class and the common people deepened. While palaces continued to live in luxury, peasants suffered from hunger. Linear B tablets record an increase in the number of slaves, showing that free peasants were becoming enslaved due to debt. Rebellions began. A letter from Ugarit mentions slaves killing their masters. Another document states that mercenaries rebelled because they weren't paid their wages. In Mycenaean palaces, there are traces of fire, but it's unclear whether these were from external attacks or internal rebellions. The weakening of central authority led to the emergence of local power centers. Each local lord established his own army. Banditry increased. Trade routes became unsafe. Nomadic groups called Habiru began attacking settlements. These were perhaps unemployed mercenaries or peasants who had lost their land. In the 1220s BC, strange news began to circulate in the eastern Mediterranean. Unidentified groups were attacking coastal cities, looting them and disappearing. At first, these seemed like ordinary pirate raids, but the frequency and intensity of the attacks were increasing. Egyptian pharaoh Merneptah's victory inscription mentions that in 1208 BC, the Libyans allied with the northern peoples of the sea. These groups included the Shurdan, Shekelish, Luka, Tersha, and Ekwesh. Merneptah claims to have defeated this coalition, but the threat hadn't disappeared. There are various theories about the origins of these names. The Shurdan perhaps from Sardinia, Shekelish from Sicily, Luka from Lycia, southern Anatolia, Tersha perhaps the ancestors of the Etruscans, Ekwesh probably Ahiawa, that is Homer's Archaeoi, the Mycenaeans. This shows that the Sea Peoples were not a single people but a coalition of different groups. The destruction of Ugarit is the best documented example of the Sea Peoples' catastrophe. Letters from the city's last days describe the approaching disaster step by step. Tablet RS 181447, A desperate letter from King Amurapi of Ugarit to the King of Cyprus. My father, now enemy ships have come. They have burned my cities and done evil things in my country. My father should know that all my troops and chariots are stationed in the land of Hatti, and all my ships are in the land of Lucca. Thus the country is abandoned to itself. My father should know, 7 enemy ships have come and inflicted much damage on us. The reply from the King of Cyprus, RSL1, is even more worrying. You have written to me that enemy ships have been sighted. Well then, you and your city be strong. Station your troops and chariots inside the city. Watch for the enemy. But it was too late. Unfired tablets found in Ugarit show the city was suddenly destroyed. One tablet was abandoned half-written. Another tablet requests urgent grain shipment. One of the last letters cries out, "The houses are destroyed, there is no food." The end of the Hittite Empire was even more dramatic. The last Hittite king, Suppiluliuma II, writes about fighting mysterious enemies at sea. Tablet KBO 1238. I fought sea battles against the ships of Alashia, Cyprus. I defeated and destroyed their ships at sea 3 times. But these victories couldn't stop the general collapse. Hattusa was burned and abandoned around 1180 BC. The fire was so intense that clay tablets were fired, stone walls cracked, metal objects melted. Archaeologists have determined the city was systematically burned. This was a planned destruction operation. With the collapse of the Hittite Empire, Anatolia entered a dark period. Writing was forgotten, cities were abandoned, trade stopped. From the great Hittite Empire, only small Neo-Hittite kingdoms remained in southeast Anatolia and northern Syria. These could only partially continue the Hittite tradition. In Greece, Mycenaean palaces were falling one after another. Pylos was burned around 1180 BC. Linear B tablets reflect the panic of the final moments. Tablet PY and 65-7, watchers are being sent to guard the coasts. PYJN 829, temple bronzes are to be collected for making arrowheads and spears. The palace was burned while making defensive preparations. The situation at Tiryns was somewhat different. The city survived the initial attacks thanks to its strong walls. But around 1200 BC, a major earthquake destroyed part of the walls. Fire broke out immediately after. Did the earthquake cause the fire, or did attackers taking advantage of the earthquake burn the city? It's unknown. The city of Mycenae itself was strangely abandoned without being burned. Treasury rooms were looted, but houses and walls remained intact. It's as if the people evacuated the city knowing a greater disaster was coming. Where did they go? Some may have migrated overseas to Cyprus or the Anatolian coast. Some may have joined the Sea Peoples. Between 1200 to 1150 BC, a domino effect occurred in the eastern Mediterranean. In Cyprus, Enkomi and Kishon were burned. On the Syrian coast, Alalak, Emar, and Carchemish were destroyed. In Palestine, Hazor, Megiddo, and Lachish were devastated. Even Egypt barely survived. The scale of this destruction was incredible. According to Robert Drew's calculations, more than 40 important cities in Anatolia and the Levant were destroyed or abandoned. Most of these never saw settlement again. Civilization literally collapsed. Archaeological evidence shows different patterns of destruction. Some cities, Ugarit, Pylos, were destroyed by sudden attack. Some, Hattusa, Mycenae, were systematically evacuated and burned. Some Tiryns, Knossos, were destroyed by a combination of natural disaster and attack. This shows a chain of interconnected disasters rather than a single event. By the 1180s BC, the Sea Peoples had become an organized confederation. The inscriptions of Ramesses III at Medinet Habu report that this confederation consisted of 9 different groups: Peliset, Jekka, Shekelesh, Danyen, Weshesh, Teresh, Shurden, Lucca, and Ekwesh. This wasn't just a military alliance, but a migrating people. The Medinet Habu reliefs show women and children in ox carts. This wasn't a typical raiding expedition, but a mass migration. Drought, famine, and social collapse had forced thousands of people to leave their homes. Their organization was surprisingly advanced. They had both land and sea forces that operated in coordination. The naval forces consisted of fast sailing ships. The land forces provided logistic support with ox carts. This level of organization required a central command structure. Ramesses III faced the greatest attack of the Sea Peoples. The Medinet Habu inscriptions describe the situation in dramatic language. The foreign countries made a conspiracy in their islands. All at once the lands were removed and scattered in the fray. No land could stand before their arms. From Hatti, Kode, Carchemish, Arzawar, and Alashia on, being cut off at one time. A camp was set up in one place in Amaru. They desolated its people, and its land was like that which has never come into being. They were coming forward toward Egypt, while the flame was prepared before them. Ramesses had to fight on two fronts. First came the land battle. The Sea People's land forces pressed against Egypt's border through Palestine. Ramesses probably met them near modern Gaza. Egyptian archers and chariots scattered the enemy army, slowed by ox carts. The critical battle was at sea. The Sea People's navy tried to enter the Nile Delta. Ramesses lured them into narrow channels. While archers rained arrows from the shore, Egyptian ships surrounded the enemy. The Medinet Habu reliefs show enemy soldiers falling into the sea. Capsized ships captured leaders. The sea battle in the Nile Delta is one of the best documented naval engagements of the ancient world. The Medinet Habu reliefs show every phase of the battle in detail. The Sea People's ships were sailing vessels. Their prows were shaped like bird heads, and their sterns were curved. Egyptian ships used both sails and oars, giving them a maneuvering advantage. Ramesses' tactics were brilliant. He lured the enemy fleet into the shallow waters of the delta. Here, large ships couldn't maneuver. Archer units positioned on the shore began a continuous rain of arrows. Egyptian sailors used grappling hooks to catch enemy ships and capsize them. The battle's outcome was a decisive Egyptian victory. Thousands of Sea People's warriors were killed or captured. But Ramesses followed a pragmatic policy. He recruited some survivors into the Egyptian army. Sherden warriors became Egypt's elite guards. The Peliset were settled in Palestine, nominally as Egypt's vassals. The settlement of the Peliset people in Palestine changed the region's history. Archaeological evidence shows a sudden cultural change in the Palestinian coastal plain. Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Gath, and Ekron, the 5 great cities of the Philistines, were founded or rebuilt during this period. Early Philistine pottery imitates the Mycenaean Tethon Sea style. Crater-type vessels, stirrup jars, geometric patterns, all point to Aegean origins. But over time they merged with local Canaanite culture. Second-generation Philistine pottery shows a hybrid style. DNA analysis of the Philistine cemetery found at Ashkelon in 2019 gave shocking results. The Philistines' genetic makeup confirms Southern European, specifically Aegean region origins, but within 3 generations they had completely mixed with the local Levantine population. This shows a rapid cultural assimilation process. After the passage of the Sea Peoples, the Eastern Mediterranean entered a dark period. Writing systems were forgotten. Linear B was never used again. Hittite cuneiform disappeared. Trade networks collapsed. Art and architecture regressed. Population decreased dramatically. In Greece, after the collapse of Mycenaean civilization, population decreased by 75%. People began living in small villages, in simple houses. Geometric period pottery looks primitive after the sophisticated style of Mycenaean art. For 400 years, no writing was used in Greece. The situation in Anatolia was even worse. After the collapse of the Hittite Empire, central Anatolia was almost empty. Power shifted east to Assyria and west to Neo-Hittite kingdoms. The Phrygians only emerged as a new power in Anatolia in the 9th century BC. The collapse of the Bronze Age paradoxically led to technological progress. When the complex trade networks required for bronze production collapsed, people turned to local iron ore. Iron was everywhere and its processing, though difficult, could be done locally. The Hittites knew ironworking technology but kept it a state secret. When the empire collapsed, Hittite blacksmiths scattered in all directions and spread their knowledge. After 1200 BC, iron tools and weapons rapidly became widespread. Iron was not just a technological but also a social revolution. Bronze was the metal of the elite class, expensive, rare, imported. Iron was a democratic metal, cheap, abundant, local. Every village could have its own blacksmith. This changed power balances. Now it wasn't rich trading cities but mountainous regions with iron resources that had the advantage. The collapse of the Bronze Age paradoxically led to technological progress. When the complex trade networks required for bronze production collapsed, people turned to local iron ore. Iron was everywhere and its processing, though difficult, could be done locally. The Hittites knew ironworking technology but kept it a state secret. When the empire collapsed, Hittite blacksmiths scattered in all directions and spread their knowledge. After 1200 BC, iron tools and weapons rapidly became widespread. Iron was not just a technological but also a social revolution. Bronze was the metal of the elite class, expensive, rare, imported. Iron was a democratic metal, cheap, abundant, local. Every village could have its own blacksmith. This changed power balances. Now it wasn't rich trading cities but mountainous regions with iron resources that had the advantage. By 1150 BC, the eastern Mediterranean had completely changed. Great empires were replaced by small kingdoms and city-states. Egypt turned inward and never reached its former power. Assyria began to rise in Mesopotamia. Greece began evolving toward the polis system. New powers emerged. The Phoenicians rebuilt the destroyed trade networks. The Aramaeans grew strong in Syria, and Aramaic became the lingua franca of the Near East. The Israelites, struggling with the Philistines, established their kingdom in Canaan. This new world was different from the old, more fragmented, more diverse, more dynamic. Instead of central empires, there were small competing states. This competition encouraged innovation. Alphabetic writing, coinage, democracy, all were born in this fragmented world. Modern archaeology constantly reveals new evidence about the Bronze Age collapse. Grain silos found at Lachish in 2016 show the city was evacuated just before its destruction, indicating a planned evacuation. New tablets found at Hattusa in 2018 reveal the last Hittite king was dealing with rebellions in western Anatolia. DNA analyses illuminate migration patterns. Research published in 2017 shows a large gene flow from southern Europe to the Levant around 1200 BC. This is genetic evidence of Sea Peoples' migration. Similarly, analyses done in Crete show the island's population changed during this period. Climate research also provides new data. Sediment samples from the Dead Sea in 2019 confirm severe drought in the region between 1250 to 1100 BC. Nile flood records in Egypt show irregularities in the same period. Tree rings in Cyprus indicate cold and dry years. The systems collapse theory proposed by Eric Klein in his book 1077 BC, The Year Civilization Collapsed, is the most accepted explanation today. Bronze Age civilizations were so interdependent that when one collapsed, a domino effect began. According to Joseph Tainter's complexity theory, when civilizations reach a certain level of complexity, the cost of maintaining this complexity exceeds its benefits. More complex solutions are produced for each new problem until the system collapses under its own weight. This is exactly what happened at the end of the Bronze Age. Climate change, economic crisis, social unrest, external attacks. The solutions produced for each problem made the system even more fragile. Eventually, the system collapsed, and simpler, more resilient structures emerged. The Bronze Age collapse changed the course of human history. Without this catastrophe, how would history have developed? Could the Hittite Empire have become Rome? Could Mycenaean civilization have experienced a golden age 1,000 years early? But collapse also led to innovation. Alphabetic writing replaced the complex writing systems of great empires. Iron technology democratized. Small city-states became fertile ground for democracy and philosophy. Perhaps Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle could only have emerged in this fragmented world. Religions also changed. The collapse of great temple systems led to the development of more personal, more ethical forms of religion. Jewish monotheism, Zoroastrian dualism, later Buddhism and Christianity, all were products of this great transformation. Each year, new discoveries deepen our understanding of the Bronze Age collapse. A letter found at Tel Lachish in 2020 shows the city requested help from Egypt just before its destruction. Linear B tablets uncovered at Knossos in 2021 reveal panic defensive preparations were being made in the palace's last days. Underwater archaeology is particularly fruitful. Dozens of shipwrecks from the late Bronze Age lie on the Mediterranean seabed. Each illuminates the period's trade, technology, and daily life. A wreck found off Israel's coast in 2019 was carrying Cypriot copper and Egyptian gold, witnesses to trade's final moments. Satellite imagery and LiDAR technology reveal invisible settlements. More than 20 Mycenaean settlements discovered in Greece in 2020 allowed us to reassess the scale of the collapse. Similar discoveries are being made in Anatolia and the Levant. Though remembered as destroyers, the Sea Peoples were also cultural carriers. They brought Aegean technology to the Levant, Anatolian traditions to Egypt. The Philistines brought iron-working technology to Palestine. The Bible frequently emphasizes the Philistines' iron monopoly, while the Israelites were condemned to bronze weapons. There are linguistic influences too. Seals and inscriptions found in Palestine show Indo-European origin names. The name Goliath may be of Anatolian origin. Aegean motifs in Philistine pottery continued for generations. The temple found at Tel Asafi follows Aegean megaron architecture. The Sea People's most important legacy is perhaps what they showed. No civilization is eternal. Even the most powerful empires can collapse when the right conditions arise. And sometimes those who change history are people whose names we don't even know. The Bronze Age collapse is not unique in history. The Maya civilization's collapse in the 9th century BC, the Roman Empire's fragmentation in the 5th century AD, Angkor's abandonment in the 15th century, all show similar patterns: climate change, excessive complexity, social inequality, external pressures. As Jared Diamond emphasized in his book Collapse, civilizations often collapse when they appear strongest. Bronze Age civilizations were at their peak in the 13th century BC. Palaces were larger than ever, armies stronger than ever, trade more widespread than ever. But this apparent strength masked deep fragilities. Modern parallels are concerning. Today's superpowers, America, China, the European Union, are interdependent like Bronze Age empires. A financial crisis, a pandemic, a climate catastrophe could create a domino effect. Perhaps the Sea People's real lesson is the importance of resilience. Though the Bronze Age collapse appeared to be technological regression, it actually led to innovation. The simplification of writing systems democratized literacy. Instead of Linear B's 200+ signs came the Phoenician alphabet's 22 letters. Instead of Hittite cuneiforms, thousands of combinations. Simple alphabetic writing. Maritime technology advanced. The Sea People's fast, light ships were more effective than heavy Bronze Age vessels. These designs were adopted and developed by the Phoenicians. By the 8th century BC, the Phoenicians were building ships that could sail into the Atlantic. Military technology also evolved. Heavy bronze armor and chariots were replaced by light infantry and cavalry. Iron weapons democratized warfare. Now every farmer could fight with a simple iron spear and shield. This led to the birth of the Greek hoplite phalanx in the 7th century BC. Dark Ages are also periods of cultural fermentation. Greece's geometric period appeared primitive, but during this period, Greek mythology took shape, the Homeric epics formed, and the idea of the polis was born. In Israel, the period of Judges appears chaotic, but during this period, Israelite identity formed, the first portions of the Torah were written, and monotheism crystallized. The kingdom of David and Solomon was a product of this dark period. In Anatolia, the Phrygian kingdom rose on the ruins of the Hittite Empire. Gordian became a new cultural center. King Midas, with his legendary golden touch, was a symbol of this rebirth. Phrygian music and weaving influenced the Greeks. From the 10th century BC onward, trade slowly began to revive. But this new trade network was different from the Bronze Age. Instead of central empires, there were independent merchant cities. The Phoenicians were pioneers of this new system. Tyre and Sidon became centers of Mediterranean trade. Phoenician colonies, Carthage, Gades, Utica, were nodes in the trade network. The Phoenicians didn't just transport goods, they transported culture. The alphabet spread to every corner of the Mediterranean. The Greeks also took to the seas. From the 8th century BC onward, Greek colonies were established from the Black Sea to Spain. Each colony established commercial ties with the motherland. Olive oil, wine and ceramics were exported. Grain, metal, and slaves were imported. This trade enabled Greek city-states to prosper. Instead of the Bronze Age's central empires, various political models emerged in the Iron Age. In Greece, the polis system developed. Each polis was independent, with its own laws, army, and gods. This fragmented structure allowed for experimentation and innovation. Phoenician cities established oligarchic republics. Merchant families governed the city. There were kings, but their power was limited. This model was later developed by Carthage and Rome. Israel transitioned from tribal confederation to kingdom. 12 tribes first formed a loose union, then united under Saul, David, and Solomon. But the kingdom was short-lived. It split in two in 928 BC. This division was perhaps an indication of local resistance to central authority. Assyria developed a new type of empire model: ruthless military force, systematic terror, forced migration. The Assyrian model became an example for later empires, but it also accumulated hatred. When Nineveh fell in 612 BC, no one mourned. The Bronze Age collapse created a revolution in religious thought. Great temple systems collapsed. The gods had failed to protect people. People sought new meanings, new hopes. In Judaism, exile theology developed. Disasters were God's punishment, but also an opportunity for purification. The idea of the Messiah, the Savior King, took shape during this period. Apocalyptic literature was a product of collapse trauma. In Greece, the final form of the Olympian pantheon emerged during this period. Chaotic, capricious, human gods, perhaps they reflected the chaos of the collapse. But the idea of fate also developed. Even the gods bowed to fate. Zoroastrianism was born in Iran. The cosmic battle between good and evil reflected the experience of the collapse period. The struggle between Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu gave people meaning and hope. The splendor of Bronze Age art was lost. Mycenaean frescoes were replaced by geometric patterns. Hittite reliefs were replaced by simple stelae. Even Egyptian art became simplified and schematic. But this regression also led to the birth of new forms of expression. Geometric period Greek pottery developed an abstract but powerful aesthetic. The black figure technique revolutionized narrative art. Each vase told a story. Music also changed. Bronze Age palace music was replaced by folk music. The lyre became Greece's symbolic instrument. Wandering bards, a soidoi, carried epics from village to village. Music democratized. In the absence of written literature, oral tradition developed. The Homeric epics were transmitted, enriched and evolved by bards for generations. When written down in the 8th century BC, they carried the accumulation of 500 years of oral tradition. The Iliad and Odyssey were not just literary works but cultural memory. The nostalgia for the lost Bronze Age, the tragedy of war, the difficulty of homecoming, the traumas of the Sea Peoples period were processed in these epics. In the Near East, the Epic of Gilgamesh was rewritten. The standard Babylonian version was formed in the post-collapse period. Fear of death, the search for immortality, the value of friendship, universal themes appealed to people of a new age. In the 6th century BC, the Axial Age began. Confucius and Lao Tzu in China, Buddha in India, Zoroaster in Iran, the pre-Socratics in Greece, all emerged in the same period. This was no coincidence. The Bronze Age collapse had destroyed old certainties. People were asking new questions. What is the origin of the universe? What is good and evil? How should we live? Philosophers sought rational rather than mythological answers. When Thales said everything is water, he was removing gods from the equation. When Heraclitus said everything flows, he was emphasizing change. When Pythagoras deified numbers, he was seeking the mathematical order of the universe. In the Bronze Age, knowledge was the monopoly of temples and palaces. Priests knew astronomy, scribes knew mathematics. After the collapse, knowledge democratized. Everyone could observe and propose theories. Babylonian astronomers tabulated planetary movements. The Greeks took this and created geometric models. Thales predicted a solar eclipse. Anaximander proposed the idea of evolution. Empedocles developed the four elements theory. In medicine, the Hippocratic Revolution occurred. Disease was not the god's punishment, but the result of natural causes. Observation, diagnosis, prognosis, the foundations of modern medicine were laid. The Hippocratic Oath has been the foundation of medical ethics for 2,500 years. The Bronze Age's rigid social hierarchy collapsed. Palace bureaucracy, land aristocracy, professional soldiers, all disappeared. They were replaced by more fluid, more dynamic structures. Social mobility increased in the Iron Age. A blacksmith could become rich, a merchant could become noble. Mercenary service offered opportunities to poor youth. Colonization provided new beginnings for landless peasants. Women's status changed. In Bronze Age palaces, women were either queens or slaves. In the Iron Age, especially in trading cities, women took more active roles. In Sparta, women could own property. In Lesbos, Sappho founded a poetry school. The collapse of the palace economy led to the birth of the market economy. In the Bronze Age, production and distribution were centrally controlled. Linear B tablets record every sheep, every jar of olive oil. In the Iron Age, private property and free trade developed. Coinage was invented in Lydia in the 7th century BC. Money revolutionized trade. Barter was no longer necessary. Value was standard and portable. Banking developed. Temples became the first banks. Safe deposit, lending, money transfer. Commercial contracts became complex. Partnerships, insurance, letters of credit. The foundations of capitalism were being laid. Iron weapons changed warfare. The Bronze Age's aristocratic warriors with their chariots and heavy armor were relegated to the past. In the Iron Age, mass infantry gained importance. The Greek hoplite phalanx was the symbol of this revolution. heavy infantry arranged side by side, with bronze shields and iron spears. Individual heroism wasn't important, collective discipline was. At Marathon, at Thermopylae, the phalanx proved its superiority. Cavalry also developed. The Scythians perfected mounted archery. The Assyrians developed heavy cavalry. The Persians combined these two traditions. The horse was the tank of the ancient world. The Sea People's legacy was advanced seafaring. Light, fast ships shortened long distances. The Phoenicians took and developed this technology. In 600 BC, Phoenician sailors circumnavigated Africa, 2,000 years before Vasco da Gama. The Greeks invented the trireme, 3 rows of oarsmen, bronze ram, speed and maneuverability. At Salamis, the Greek fleet destroyed the Persian armada. Naval power became as important as land power. Navigation advanced, finding direction by stars, harbour guides, maps. The sea was no longer an obstacle, but an opportunity. Colonization, trade, cultural exchange, all flowed across the seas. Iron Age cities were different from the Bronze Age. Not palace-centered, but agora/forum-centered. Public space for trade, politics, social life, democratic participation became possible. Hippodamus invented the grid plan. Straight streets, right angles, planned neighborhoods, Miletus, Priene, Alexandria were founded according to this plan. Rational, egalitarian, modern, a model for today's cities from 2,500 years ago. Monumental architecture was reborn, but this time not for gods but for the people. Greek theatres, Roman amphitheatres, gymnasiums, baths, public buildings were the centre of communal life. After the collapse, cultures became more open, more receptive. The Greeks took the alphabet, astronomy and mathematics from the East. The Phoenicians adopted Egyptian art and Mesopotamian trade. The Romans took something from everyone. This synthesis created new and original cultures. Hellenistic civilization was a mixture of Greek and Eastern. Roman civilization blended all the traditions of the Mediterranean. Buddhism combined Indian and Greek philosophy. Languages also mixed. Aramaic became the lingua franca of the Near East. Koine Greek was spoken in the Eastern Mediterranean. Latin became the common language of the West. A multilingual, multicultural world was born. Much was lost in the Bronze Age collapse, but not everything. Knowledge was transmitted through different channels. Oral tradition, craft knowledge, religious rituals, all were knowledge carriers. Egypt provided continuity. Hieroglyphs weren't forgotten. Papyri were preserved. Cuneiform continued in Mesopotamia. These two centers carried ancient knowledge to the Hellenistic period. The Library of Alexandria was the culmination of this accumulation. 400,000 papyrus scrolls, the knowledge of the entire known world. From the Bronze Age to the Hellenistic period, from there to Rome, from there to Byzantium and the Islamic world, the river of knowledge continued to flow. Rome became the true heir of the Bronze Age empires. Central administration, professional army, legal system, infrastructure. But Rome learned from the Bronze Age's mistakes. The Roman system was more flexible. Local autonomy, graduated citizenship, cultural diversity. Rome didn't destroy, it assimilated. Civis Romanus sum, I am a Roman citizen, was a source of pride. Roman law was universal. Jus gentium, the law of peoples, applied to everyone. This became the foundation of modern international law. Roman roads, Roman law, Roman peace, still effective after 2,000 years. Alexander's conquests began a new age. Greek culture spread to India, Egyptian culture to Bactria. This was the first real globalization. The Hellenistic kingdoms, Ptolemaic Egypt, the Seleucid Empire, Pergamon, were a synthesis of the Bronze Age and Classical Age, large but flexible, central but diverse, powerful but cultured. A scientific explosion occurred. In Alexandria, Eratosthenes calculated Earth's circumference. Archimedes advanced mathematics and physics in Syracuse. Hipparchus revolutionized astronomy. The lost knowledge of the Bronze Age met new science. In the Hellenistic period, religions merged. Isis spread from Egypt throughout the Mediterranean. Mithras came from Iran to Rome. The Jewish diaspora spread monotheism. Mystery religions became popular. Cults of Eleusis, Orpheus, Dionysus, personal salvation, afterlife, initiation, very different from the Bronze Age's state religions. This religious diversity prepared the ground for Christianity's spread. Christianity blended Jewish monotheism, Greek philosophy, and the rituals of mystery religions to create a universal religion. When the Silk Road opened, the effects of the Bronze Age collapse reached China. Iron technology, horse riding, wheeled vehicles, all flowed from west to east. Buddhism reached China through Hellenistic kingdoms. Gandhara art combined Greek and Buddhist traditions. Buddha statues like Apollo were symbols of cultural fusion. From China came paper, gunpowder, and the compass. Technology exchange transformed civilizations. Instead of the Bronze Age's isolated civilizations, a connected world was born. In the 3rd century AD, Rome also experienced crisis. Inflation, civil wars, barbarian attacks. It resembled the Bronze Age collapse. But Rome survived, for now. Diocletian's reforms stabilized the system. Constantine moved the capital east. Christianity became a new unifying force. The empire transformed. But in the 5th century, Western Rome collapsed. Huns, Goths, Vandals, a new migration wave, a new collapse. History was repeating itself. But this time, knowledge was preserved. Monasteries, the Islamic world, Byzantium. The Dark Age wasn't as dark as the Bronze Ages. The rise of Islam in the 7th century created a new synthesis. Arab conquests resembled Alexander's, but the Arabs didn't destroy, they preserved and developed. The House of Wisdom in Baghdad became the heir to the Library of Alexandria. Greek, Persian, and Indian works were translated into Arabic. Al-Khwarizmi developed algebra, Ibn al-Haytham optics, Ibn Sina medicine. Islamic civilization carried ancient knowledge to medieval Europe. Translation schools were established in Toledo and Palermo. Aristotle was translated from Arabic to Latin. The foundations of the Renaissance were laid. The Viking Age of the 8th–11th centuries resembled the Sea Peoples. Northern warriors ravaged Europe. But the Vikings weren't just raiders. Vikings established trade networks. From Constantinople to Greenland, from Baghdad to Iceland, they operated across a wide geography. The Rurik dynasty founded Russia. The Normans founded England and Sicily. Viking technology, longships, navigation skills, ironworking, transformed Europe. New trade routes opened. The North Sea became as important as the Mediterranean. In the 14th century, Europe experienced a new crisis. The Black Death killed a third of the population. The 100 Years' War devastated France. The Little Ice Age struck agriculture. But from this crisis came the Renaissance. The fall of Constantinople forced Greek scholars to migrate west. The printing press democratized knowledge. Geographical discoveries opened new worlds. Like the Bronze Age collapse, the end of the Middle Ages led to new beginnings. The scientific revolution, the Enlightenment, the Industrial Revolution, all were products of this transformation. The Industrial Revolution created a new level of complexity. Global trade, technological dependence, environmental pressures. It resembles the Bronze Age. The 20th century saw 2 world wars. Empires collapsed, new ones were born. The Cold War created a new balance, but that collapsed too in the 21st century, there are new threats. Climate change, pandemics, cyber attacks, nuclear threat. They could be more destructive than the Bronze Age's Sea Peoples. The lesson from the Bronze Age collapse. Complexity creates fragility. Excessive specialization, excessive dependence, excessive centralization, all are risk factors. Resilient systems rely on diversity, local autonomy, redundancy, not monoculture but polyculture, not single center but multiple centers, not single solution but multiple solutions. Technology is both solution and problem. The internet democratized information but is vulnerable to cyber attacks. AI increases efficiency but creates unemployment. Nuclear energy is clean but dangerous. The Bronze Age collapse shows the importance of cultural memory. Writing systems were forgotten, knowledge was lost. But oral tradition, craft knowledge, and religious rituals preserved some of it. In the modern world we have digital memory, but it's also fragile. An EMP attack, solar storm, cyber war. All digital information could be erased. Paper and stone are still the most durable. Cultural diversity is an insurance policy. Each culture is humanity's different solution. Homogenization creates the risk of total collapse. Indigenous knowledge, traditional medicine, old technologies, all are Plan B. Bronze Age people were unprepared for collapse. They were over-specialized. A scribe only knew writing. A blacksmith only worked iron. When the system collapsed, their skills were useless. Modern education is also focused on specialization, but general skills, critical thinking, problem-solving, adaptation, are more important, necessary in a rapidly changing world even without collapse. Practical skills, farming, handicrafts, first aid, shouldn't be lost. Everyone should learn programming, but everyone should also know how to grow a garden. Both high technology and low technology are needed. The Bronze Age was the first globalization, and it collapsed. Modern globalization is also risky. If a single supply chain breaks, the entire system can stop. COVID-19 showed this. Localization provides resilience. Local food production, local energy, local manufacturing, but completely local doesn't work either. Trade, innovation, cultural exchange are necessary. Glocal, think global, act local. This balance is difficult, but necessary. The European Union is trying this model. Local autonomy, common standards. Is it successful? Time will tell. Climate change played a role in the Bronze Age collapse. Today, human-caused climate change is much faster and more destructive. Sea levels are rising, droughts are increasing, storms are intensifying. Fossil fuel dependence is like the Bronze Age's tin dependence. Alternatives exist: solar, wind, nuclear, but transition is difficult. The oil lobby resists change. Circular economy is part of the solution. Recycling, reuse, repair. In the Bronze Age, metal was valuable and was recycled. Modern waste culture is unsustainable. Bronze technology was elite technology. Iron was democratic, which is digital technology. Both democratic, everyone has a phone, and elitist, controlled by big companies. Is AI the new bronze? Complex, powerful, incomprehensible, controlled by a few companies. What happens if it collapses? Humans have forgotten basic skills. Reading maps with GPS, mathematics with calculators. The human-machine balance is critical. Technology should be a tool, not a master. The Amish are one extreme. They reject technology. Silicon Valley is the other extreme. Technology is everything. Where is the middle way? The Bronze Age collapse changed the nature of war. The transition from elite chariots to mass infantry transformed society. Today, war is changing again: cyber war, drone wars, hybrid war. Nuclear weapons created May-D, mutually assured destruction balance. But this balance is fragile. An accident, a misunderstanding, a crazy leader. The Bronze Age collapse would be child's play in comparison. Peace requires active effort. UN, EU, ASEAN, international institutions try to prevent conflict. But the League of Nations existed too, after World War I. It didn't work. The Sea Peoples were migrants, refugees, invaders. Today, millions of people are migrating. Climate change, war, economic crisis. Different causes, same result. Aging societies, Japan, Europe, need immigrants. But migration creates social tension. Populism, nationalism, wall building. Like Bronze Age walls, these may not stop collapse either. Urbanization is accelerating. By 2050, 70% of the world's population will live in cities. Megacities, Tokyo, Delhi, Lagos, are becoming unmanageable. Like Bronze Age palaces, these could collapse too. Bronze Age palace economy collapsed. Feudalism, mercantilism, capitalism, socialism, all were tried. Neoliberal capitalism is dominant, but problematic. Inequality, environmental destruction, financial crises. A cryptocurrency is the new coinage, independent of central authority, borderless, programmable, but volatile, energy-intensive, unregulated. From bronze standard to gold standard, from there to fiat currency, now to digital. UBI, universal basic income, could be the answer for the automation age, like Rome's bread and circuses policy, but more systematic. Does it work? Finland and Kenya are trying. Results are mixed. In the Bronze Age, knowledge was an elite monopoly. The printing press democratized it. The internet democratized it further. But information pollution, fake news, echo chambers. Finding truth has become difficult. The scientific method is humanity's greatest achievement, but trust in science is declining. Vaccine opposition, flat earth, climate denial. Bronze Age superstitions are returning. The academic system resembles Bronze Age temples, ivory towers, jargon, elitism, disconnected from the people. Citizen science, open access, science communication. These are bridge-building efforts. The Bronze Age collapse created religious revolution. Today, religion is also transforming. Traditional religions are weakening. Secularism is spreading. But there's spiritual hunger. New Age, mindfulness, yoga, modern mystery religions. A synthesis of science and spirituality is being sought. Quantum mysticism, psychedelic renaissance. Bronze Age priests would laugh. Fundamentalism is a reaction to modernity. Islamic, Christian, Hindu, Buddhist. It exists in every religion. Nostalgia for the Bronze Age. But there's no going back, only forward. Bronze Age art served the palace. Modern art serves the market. NFTs, digital art, AI art, new forms, new questions. What is art? Who decides? Popular culture is global. Hollywood, K-pop, Bollywood. But there's local resistance. Every culture seeks to preserve its identity. Cultural appropriation debates reflect this tension. Music has democratized. Everyone is a producer. Everyone is a publisher. Spotify, YouTube, TikTok. But musicians can't make money. Bronze Age bards at least ate food. Writing was Bronze Age technology. Printing press, radio, TV, internet. Each new medium transformed society. Social media is the latest revolution. Everyone is a broadcaster. Everyone is an editor. But echo chambers, polarization, disinformation, like the Bronze Age's fragmented world, everyone lives in their own reality. There's no common truth. Deepfakes blur reality. What will we believe? Bronze Age people believed in gods. Modern people believe in algorithms. Both are invisible. Both are powerful. In the Bronze Age, plague destroyed civilizations. COVID-19 shook but didn't destroy the modern world. Medicine has advanced, vaccines, antibiotics, surgery, but there are new threats. Antibiotic resistance is the silent pandemic. Superbugs are evolving. We could return to the Bronze Age, death from simple infection. New antibiotics are needed but not profitable. Lifespan is extending, but what about quality of life? Chronic diseases, mental health crisis, loneliness epidemic. Bronze Age people died at 40 but were perhaps happier. Drought struck the Bronze Age. Floods, fires, storms are striking us. The Amazon is burning, glaciers are melting, coral reefs are dying. The sixth mass extinction has begun. Can technology save us? Renewable energy, carbon capture, geoengineering. There's hope, but time is running out. The Bronze Age had 50 years. How many years do we have? System change is necessary. Infinite growth on a finite planet is impossible. Degrowth, circular economy, regenerative agriculture. Alternatives exist, but there's no political will. AI could be the new sea peoples. If it escapes our control, it could destroy our civilization. But it's different. We created it, we control it. Or so we think. AGI, artificial general intelligence, is approaching. Human-level intelligence, then superintelligence. Singularity, the unpredictable point of change. Like the Bronze Age collapse but upward. Job automation is shaking social structure. White collar, blue collar, all at risk. A new Luddite movement could emerge. Machine breakers, server farm burners. CRISPR gives the power to redesign humans. Eliminate diseases. Increase intelligence. Extend lifespan. But for whom? For the elite or for everyone? A new caste system could emerge. Brain-computer interfaces are starting the cyborg age. Neuralink, thought control. Upload consciousness. Digital immortality. What will it mean to be human? Synthetic biology is programming life. New organisms, new ecosystems. Bronze Age people shaped bronze. We're shaping life itself. Have we become gods? Quantum computers can break encryption. All digital security could collapse. Banks, governments, military, all defenseless. The new Bronze Age collapse could be digital. Quantum communication is unhackable. Quantum internet, the new network. But who will control it? The quantum arms race has begun. Quantum supremacy, the new hegemony. Quantum sensors can see everything. Underground, underwater, stealth aircraft. Nothing can remain hidden. Privacy, like a Bronze Age luxury, could remain in the past. Fossil fuels are running out. Is renewable energy enough? Battery technology is the bottleneck. Lithium, cobalt, rare earth elements. New resource wars could begin. Fusion energy has been 20 years away for 30 years. ITER, Private companies. The race is accelerating. If successful, unlimited clean energy. If unsuccessful, energy collapse. Water is the new oil. Freshwater sources are decreasing. Seawater desalination is energy intensive. Water wars have already begun. Nile, Mekong, Colorado. In the Bronze Age they fought for grain. We'll fight for water. Industrial age education. Factory model, standard curriculum, exam system is collapsing. Digital learning, personalized education, lifelong learning, new models are being tried. Universities are experiencing crisis. Debt burden, employment problems, online competition, ivory towers are falling. MOOCs, boot camps, micro-credentials, alternatives are multiplying. Critical thinking, creativity, emotional intelligence, these can't be taught, only developed. In the AI age, this is the value of being human. Bronze Age masters taught their craft. What will we teach? Liberal democracy is experiencing crisis. Populism, authoritarianism, technocracy, alternatives are competing. Chinese model, Singapore model, Scandinavian model, which will win? Digital democracy, blockchain voting, liquid democracy, AI-assisted governance. Can technology save democracy or kill it? Is Athens' direct democracy possible in the digital age? The nation-state has been dominant since Westphalia, but global problems require global solutions. The idea of world government, like Bronze Age empires, or something new. The legal system can't keep up with change. Cybercrimes, AI rights, genetic property, new categories, old laws. Hammurabi's code was also modern in its time. Algorithmic justice, AI judges, predictive policing, risk assessment, unbiased or encoding bias. Minority Report is becoming real. International law is weak. Climate courts, cyber war rules, space law, there are gaps. There were international treaties in the Bronze Age too, Kadesh, but war didn't end. Modern life is contrary to human psychology. Evolutionary mismatch. Hunter-gatherer brain in a digital world. Anxiety and depression are epidemic. Bronze Age stress was different, acute. Ours is chronic. Social media is the dopamine economy. Addiction by design. Attention deficit, FOMO, comparison trap. Bronze Age people knew 150 people. We're connected to millions but lonely. Psychedelic renaissance. MDMA, psilocybin, ketamine, old shaman medicines, modern therapy. Consciousness hacking, biohacking, neurohacking. We're reprogramming ourselves. Patriarchy is collapsing. Nud Me Too. Feminism 4.0. Toxic masculinity debate. Structures continuing since the Bronze Age are being shaken. A new balance is being sought. Gender spectrum, non-binary, transhumanism. Identity is becoming fluid. Biology is not destiny, but choice. In the Bronze Age, gods changed shape. Now humans are changing. Reproductive technologies, IVF, artificial wombs, genetic selection, family structure is changing. Polyamory, chosen family, co-parenting, Bronze Age clans are returning in modern form. Time is accelerating fineness, or so it feels. Technological change is exponential. The Bronze Age lasted 1,000 years, the Industrial Age 200, the Information Age 50, the next age 10 years. 24/7 economy makes time zones meaningless. Circadian rhythm is disrupted. Jet lag, shift work, blue light. Biological clock is not synchronized with social clock. Digital immortality, social media profiles, AI chatbots talking to the dead. Black Mirror is becoming real. Death was definitive in the Bronze Age. Now it's blurry. Nihilism is spreading. God is dead. Ideologies have collapsed. Science doesn't provide meaning. Existential crisis, quarter-life crisis, midlife crisis. Everyone is lost. New searches for meaning. Effective altruism, long-termism, transhumanism, rational religion alternatives. Bronze Age people served gods. What do we serve? Climate anxiety, eco-grief, solastalgia. The future looks dark. Was there hope when the Bronze Age was collapsing? Perhaps collapse is necessary for rebirth. Megacities are growing vertically. Super-tall skyscrapers, underground cities, floating cities, new towers of Babel. Bronze Age walls were horizontal, ours are vertical. Smart cities, IoT, surveillance, algorithmic governance. The city is a computer, we are data points. The panopticon has become real. freedom or security. Rural areas are emptying. Rewilding, permaculture, eco-villages, return movements. People fled to the countryside after the Bronze Age too. History is repeating. The automobile age is ending. Electric, autonomous, shared transportation is becoming a service. In the Bronze Age, horses were status, cars were too, not anymore. Hyperloop, flying cars, teleportation, science fiction is approaching reality. But infrastructure change is slow. Roman roads lasted 2,000 years. Our asphalt lasts 20 years. Space tourism is beginning. Virgin Galactic, SpaceX, Blue Origin, new frontier for the elite. Bronze Age elite rode chariots. Modern elite go to space. Industrial agriculture is unsustainable. Soil erosion, pesticide resistance, monoculture risks. A new dust bowl is coming. Drought struck the Bronze Age. Soil loss will strike us. Vertical farming, lab-grown meat, insect protein, food technology revolution. But expensive, energy-intensive. For everyone or for the elite. Food sovereignty movements, seed saving, guerrilla gardening, community gardens, localization in food, romantic return to before the Bronze Age, to hunter-gathering. Video games are the new arena. Esports, streaming, virtual worlds, billions live in virtual worlds. Bronze Age people listen to stories of gods. We live those stories. Gamification, everything is a game. Social credit, fitness trackers, loyalty programs, behavior manipulation. We live in a Skinner box. Binge culture, Netflix, YouTube, TikTok, infinite content, finite attention. Entertainment was rare and valuable in the Bronze Age. Now it's abundant, worthless. Surveillance capitalism. Data is the new oil. Every click, every glance, every breath is recorded. Bronze Age gods saw everything. Now algorithms see. Facial recognition, gait analysis, predictive behavior, nowhere to hide. China's social credit system, dystopia or future. You could escape in the Bronze Age, you can't anymore. Cybersecurity is the new wall. Firewalls, encryption, zero trust, but hackers are evolving too. Bronze Age walls fell. Digital walls will fall too. Conspicuous consumption. Status symbols are changing. Tesla, iPhone, Balenciaga, new totems. Bronze Age elite wore gold. Modern elite wear brands. Minimalism trend. Less is more. Marie Kondo, tiny houses, digital nomads, rejection, or new elitism. People after the Bronze Age also lived modestly, out of necessity. Experience economy, memories rather than things. Travel, festivals, workshops. But the pandemic showed experiences are fragile too. Bronze Age people shared experience. We upload to Instagram. Death is being denied. Anti-aging, cryonics, mind uploading, the search for immortality. Unchanged since Gilgamesh. Bronze Age pharaohs built pyramids. We'll upload to AI. Grief is medicalized. Antidepressants, therapy, support groups. Mourning rituals have disappeared. Grief was collective in the Bronze Age. Now it's individual, hidden. Digital afterlife, social media profiles, AI chatbots, deepfake resurrection, the dead are among us. Bronze Age people worshipped ancestors. We talk to algorithmic ghosts. 3,200 years ago, the world's most powerful civilizations collapsed. The Sea Peoples only delivered the final blow. The real destruction came from within. Mycenaeans, complexity, fragility, inequality. Today there are similar signals. Climate crisis, social fragmentation, technological disruption. Are new Sea Peoples at the door? Or have we become our own Sea Peoples? But there's hope. From the Bronze Age collapse came the Iron Age. More democratic, more innovative, more resilient. Perhaps something better will emerge from our collapse too, or not. The future is unwritten. Like Bronze Age people, we're flying blind. The only difference is we can learn from history. Are we learning? Time will tell. The Sea People's real lesson is simple. Nothing is eternal. Even the most powerful empires collapse. But life continues. Humanity adapts. New beginnings are always possible. Perhaps collapse is an evolutionary necessity. Creative destruction. The new can't be born until the old dies. Without the Bronze Age collapse, would Socrates, Jesus, Buddha have existed? Would we have existed? Final word, we don't know who the Sea Peoples were. Their names, languages, cultures are lost, but their effects are still felt 3,200 years later. Perhaps what matters is not who we are, but what we do. And what we do is the world we create for future generations. That's the story of the Sea Peoples, mysterious destroyers, lost civilizations, collapsed empires, but also a story of rebirth, adaptation, hope. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. The Bronze Age's lessons are more valuable today than ever. For ears that listen, eyes that see. Remember, every end is a new beginning. Every collapse is an opportunity to rise. The Sea Peoples showed this. Perhaps now it's our turn.